Welcome to What the Fuck
Fenugreek.
Shakespeare. We're in the studio today looking at Act 1, Scene 1 of Romeo and Juliet and looking at why is Romeo such a loser?
He's not a loser.
Hashtag loser. Loser. Welcome to What the Fish Shakespeare studio. We're going to be looking at key scenes from Shakespeare's plays and look at the relationships between the characters.
I'm helping to demystify and work out what the fish is going on.
What the fish is going on?
Why precisely is Romeo a dick?
Right. Many a morning hath he here been seen, with tears augmenting the fresh morning's dew, adding to clouds more clouds with his deep sighs. But all too soon, as the all-cheering sun should in the farthest east begin to draw the shady curtains from Aurora's bed, away from light steals home my heavy son, and in his chamber pens himself, shuts up his windows, locks fair daylight out, and makes himself an artificial night. Black and portentous must this humour prove, unless good counsel may the cause remove. And that's a really good description of a mardy, moping teenager from the lips of his own father. So it suggests that everybody knows, or his entire family knows, that he's being mardy, he's being mopey, he's not really himself, he's isolating himself. He goes into his room, classic teenager, goes into his room, shuts the doors, closes the curtains, turns it into a teenage cave. God knows what he's doing in there, but it probably involves socks. It's all a bit dark and seedy, moping over women. So he's not quite what everyone... So therefore, I suggest that he's a bit of a dick, and quite a lot of folk think he's a bit of a dick. And if you think of the difference between him and Benvolio, so Benvolio turns up and he says, Romeo wasn't here, but I saw him earlier on today. I saw him and he was moping around, and I tried to catch up with him, but I felt, no, what was it he says?
Well, he says that he was walking before dawn, before the sun had risen,
yeah.
And the use of the language is, a troubled mind drove me to walk abroad, and being one too many of my weary self suggests that Benvolio has been out all night. On the source.
On the lash. Now, whether Romeo has been out on the lash as well is to be. But he sees Romeo. Romeo notices him, legs it into a forest.
But I think Benvolio is quite glad of that. I think he's trying to deal with his own hangover and doesn't really want to deal with his mardy cousin.
So
that's the
kind of yeah. So rather than Romeo being this all-action hero
sort
and ready for action and stuff, and like a romantic lead and all that, because he's not really. He's moping around, whinging about how women don't like him, and he can't get with the ladies he wants to get with, and so that's why he's a bit of a dick, and everybody kind of knows it, even his own dad. Let's look at where Romeo is just as we meet him, literally as he walks on stage. In Elizabethan terms, he's not what we would term a teenager. They wouldn't have recognised that term. That's a modern term. He's in what Elizabethans would have called middle adulthood. So you would go through adolescence into middle adulthood, and in those years you would find your way in the world, and there'd be two paths. So one path is finding out who you are, how society works, how relationships work, and becoming a productive member of society, whatever that is for you. Or you don't figure any of that out and you become isolated and you become self-absorbed. So
that's kind of where he is at the moment, isn't he?
We're pretty sure that Romeo is on the latter of those two. He's on the isolationist route, and Lord Montague wants to change that. He wants to break him out of that, and he wants to help him to find himself, so that he can figure out what his place in the world is and where he's actually going. And Lord Montague engages Benvolio to help Romeo do that.
If you look at the question, is Romeo a dick? If you decide to make that as your choice for performance, how does that then inform the rest of the performance? How does that define the route in which you take that character and that performance?
So defining Romeo as a dick changes all of his relationships within the play. It changes his relationship with Juliet, changes his relationship with Benvolio, changes his relationship with Rosaline, it changes everything. So therefore that single decision can change the entire play. So if you choose a different decision, it'll affect it in different ways. So these small little decisions create a web of decisions for you.
So if he is a dick, if we're going to go with that choice, why does Juliet choose to go with Romeo? At the party scene, Act 1, Scene 5, she's got these 2 doors of fate, if you like. She can take the door where she goes off with Paris, marries him, she's got posterity, she's got wealth, she's got all those good things. Or she can take the other door and almost take a risk of going with Romeo, the dick. Where does that lead? Where is that going to take her? Where is that path going to take her?
By choosing Romeo, or making that choice that Romeo is a dick, it allows him to be different from Paris. Because if he's not a dick and he's like a carbon copy of Paris, you've got a strange set of things for Juliet to be deciding, because she's almost deciding on the same person. So if Paris and Romeo are both not dicks to a certain extent, then she's choosing much of a muchness. So by allowing Romeo to not be potentially as good as Paris, for us to not elevate him to that point, means we get a good character arc for him. So he starts off being a bit of a mopey little mardy dick, and eventually he moves himself through and he changes over the course of the play to become a hero, and that's what's interesting. That's what's dramatically interesting to watch, to observe, to see, to get emotionally involved in.
As a director, how do you solve a problem like Rosaline? The play is called Romeo and Juliet. So why do we start with Romeo and Rosaline?
Well, some directors would try and remove Rosaline altogether, because it kind of makes it a bit easier, potentially. But actually, if you keep Rosaline in there, it allows you to have Romeo show his fickle nature, so that you can change that. Therefore, you've got that character arc of I'm besotted with this woman, and then I've seen this other person and become besotted with them and fall deeply in love with them. So this is where the romance of Romeo and Juliet comes in. Yeah. We get a sense of this unattainable love. Rosaline is Capulet's niece, so Romeo chooses to fall in love with
the enemy,
with the enemy's the enemy's niece to start with, and then he makes an even worse choice, the enemy's daughter. So again, we're funneling all that fate down the doom funnel to the end of the tragedy. So even that choice in itself is destined for doom. Again, we're on the doom all over again. So it allows us, Rosaline allows us to have that character arc, to see where he goes to. That suddenly he gets to meet Juliet, and she disappears, and Juliet becomes his everything. And we see him start to formulate, I guess, his own self. He starts to find himself. We talked about earlier about him being isolated,
choosing that path,
and being down the wrong path. He suddenly finds his path, and that's kind of found by meeting Juliet, and he starts to find himself. As an actor,
yeah.
If you're thinking about Romeo, is he fickle, or is he dealing with unattainable love?
I think at the very beginning of the play, in my opinion, he's definitely fickle. His whole thing with Rosaline and that dark, sort of isolated route is him. But I think there's a definite light bulb moment when he meets Juliet, because everything else just falls away, and he picks a path and he goes with it.
He finds himself.
Yeah, definitely. And just everything else falls apart and falls away, and he just sort of very hones in on that. But that's what I think. What do you think? Let's pass it over to you and your ideas and comments. If you like what we're doing and what we're talking about, subscribe. Love that.
Make
put some comments
down below.
Videos, comments,
Think
links, chat. Let's talk about it. Let's open the conversation. And
Get
what
involved.
would you choose as an actor? What would your choices be? Do you see him as fickle or not? And why? And how would you approach that as an actor?
We've thrown in a load of ideas. As per usual in our episodes, we're chucking some ideas out there. We're asking you for your opinions. You can chuck your opinions at us.
Please do.
We might have got it all totally wrong. You could tell us the opposite. That's brilliant. Tell us that. Or you might completely agree with us. Fantastic as well. So just get in touch, stick in the comic threads, subscribe.